So today we are going to talk about the developmental progression of writing and why it's important to make sure that our learners get the opportunity to go through that sequence. By the end of the session, I want you to be able to describe how to use an alternative pencil to teach some authentic writing. And, oh, dude, I didn't fix this. Describe the difference between form and function of writing. So you can go in the chat as well and type in, why do you write? Tell me why you write. These are some things, I kind of came up with, to share an idea, tell someone how you feel, remember something, show that you know something, process information. Does anybody else have other, or you can unmute and shout them out either way. Memories, good. A form of communication, very nice. So what about thinking about like the arts? Are there any reasons like, to be able to engage and participate in the arts that we might need to write? So someone put music, put words to that music that we listen to. So that's one, because students are told to write, Teresa says. But writing music, writing poetry, writing your own personal narrative. Those are all reasons that we write. I do some writing, some bullet journaling for like stress management. So there's a variety of reasons that we write that are just very, meaningful and important. And it's really no different for, our students with complex needs. They need to be able to have access to this ability to write. For the same reasons that we write. So let's talk about why we teach literacy. So there's, this is all, evidence-based. This is what the research says. It enhances cognitive development, learning to read and write, improves your cognitive development. It facilitates a fuller participation at school. You're not just a visitor in the class, you're actually working. It increases employment opportunities. So students who leave us with literacy skills, being able to read and write, are able to get, are more likely to be employed and have higher paying employment. So again, very important skill to make sure that all of our kids leave school with. It supports the use of mainstream technologies. So many things require writing. And, even things like, being able to engage in Instagram and Facebook and, Snapchat. Those are, a lot of times they're putting, that's how they communicate with their friends. And, again, personal expression and social relationships. Right now, if we didn't have literacy skills, imagine how hard it would be to do this whole social isolation thing if we couldn't, communicate with friends and family through text or social media, so it's a really important way that we connect with others. The kids are connecting with each other this way. And it's a meaningful, enjoyable pursuit, leisure pursuit. Some people write for leisure, some people read for leisure. So just a variety of ways to do that. Let's see. And for our individuals with complex learning needs, it also provides a means to communicate more effectively. It has a profound impact on their self-esteem, and it has a positive impact on others' perceptions or attitudes. If you can read and write, when you get in that setting with all the other kids, they perceive you as being as competent as they are. So that's really an important skill. All right, this is a quote by, I don't know if any of you have followed Karen Erickson, but she was recently interviewed on Tools for Tech, which is a podcast. And one of the things that she said, again, is literacy is an incredibly important way that we connect socially with each other. And she was talking about how students, when they leave us, these students with complex needs, a lot of times, like their friends and stuff, they don't have a way to connect with them if they can't read or write. And so very very important to make sure that, they have a way to continue to stay socially engaged. And then this is from Carolyn Musselwright, who I just love. And, it's like, we only teach functional skills and like functional academics. And her comment is like, seriously, what's more functional than literacy? And the more I dive into literacy as an OT, the more I realize that it is just such an essential occupation. And, the whole team needs to be working on this. It's just such an important skill for our kids when it leads to transition and being able to have a meaningful life and meaningful occupations after graduation. So you'll hear me chatting about that. So the Literacy Bill of Rights, basically, I think this is just important to kind of keep in your mind that every individual has a right to be literate, and it may not look the same for everybody. But they have a right to be able to do some reading and writing in their own way to communicate whatever they want to communicate. So, I'm not going to read every word on here, but they have a right to the opportunity to learn to read and write and have accessible, clear, and meaningful and culturally and linguistically appropriate text. And that could, vary anything from what it says here. It says like picture books to newspapers, novels, electronic things, social media. They have a right to interact with others while reading and writing and listening to text. So if they're just, sitting in front of a computer reading an audiobook and then there's like no interaction, what makes that literacy development is that people give it meaning and we talk about it. So the Literacy Bill of Rights continues to have life choices made available through reading and writing competencies. A big one is self-advocacy. If you can read and write, you can make better healthcare decisions. You're healthier, you're better taken care of. So again, really, really important. So literacy educational opportunities, regardless of when they are provided, so it's never too late to start. They have potential to provide power that cannot be taken away. If you have the power to do some reading and some writing, or the power of all 26 letters of the alphabet, which we'll be getting into more, that is power that nobody can take away from you. So it's really a lifelong skill. Individuals with complex needs also have a right to teachers and other service providers who are knowledgeable about literacy instruction. And they have a right to live and learn in environments that provide varied models of print use. And it can be things like reading a recipe, paying bills, sharing a joke, writing a letter, texting a friend. I mean, so that they're provided with models of why we write. That's really, really important. And if you think of your typically developing kids, I mean, we're showing them all the time, oh, look, I wrote this down, or so that's really important. And, the right to live and learn in environments that maintain the expectation and attitudes that all individuals are literacy learners, and all means all. So this is sorry, my picture is covering the words here. So this quote is, kind of an aha moment for me. But kindergartners who are typically developing, they're from middle class homes and they're exposed to literacy from infancy. So that means reading them bedtime stories. They come to school with 1,000 hours of early literacy experiences. And so that's 30 minutes a day. Our students with complex bodies, complex medical needs, complex communication needs, so often just the care of those children is very difficult. And so they don't get those same literacy experiences. Sometimes maybe their medical status is such that it's just not even applicable, that so much is going on to just their health and survival that, when they come to school, we might be the first ones starting to give them those literacy touches. So as we look at the alternative pencil and we talk about this, we're going to use this presumed competence or presumed potential. and that all individuals have the ability to learn, to communicate, to participate in their own way, and that we need to be able to provide accessible and inclusive spaces. It respects the value of human diversity, and not presuming competence is to actively do harm. So if you don't presume that your student can become a reader and a writer, and you don't teach those skills, then you're actually doing them harm over the course of their life, because they're not developing those skills they need to be, employed, have meaningful social experiences, make better healthcare decisions for themselves. So just a very important that we kind of approach everybody from this presumed competence standpoint. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the form and function in writing. So there are two different things. So there is the form of writing. It is how writing looks, how writing is created, how the letters are formed. So often as OTs, this, and even any special educator, kids come to us, and if they can't write any of their letters, we are jumping in on teaching the form. But they might have never had the opportunity to see that writing is for a purpose, and that it has a functional meaning. And so we're pushing this form before they understand the function. And if you look at typical development, function comes first and form comes second. So looking at ways to make sure that all kids get those opportunities to scribble. And function, there's a developmental progression for what function looks like. I remember my daughter, who's 19 now, would have a notebook everywhere we went, and she'd have pages and pages and pages and pages of scribbling. And then she'd tell us this wonderful story that she wrote about, but it was her writing, and we would give that meaning, and eventually you would see that go through the stages. We'd get some shapes and some drawings and some letters between scribbles, and then a page of A's, and and it was really interesting to go back through some of her old papers several years ago and actually see her writing have gone through these stages of development. So what we need to do is really look at changing the focus to teach function, that we need to teach them that there's a function to write. And you want to choose the pencil that allows brain power for function. So if holding a crayon and marking on paper for some of our kids with complex bodies, which, kind of often I see as a goal, I've put as a goal over the years, if all of their energy is on the motor planning of putting that mark on the paper, that takes all of their cognitive energy. And so there's nothing left to, think of, oh, I was writing with this. It's like, I'm just making this mark here. And so you want to look at something that frees up that brain power for function. So this is another thing that I really feel is important for us to kind of take away from this, is that writing is not copying and tracing. Those are motor skills. They are not writing. There is no evidence that shows that kids who copy and trace become better writers. It does not teach them that print has meaning. It does not teach them that why people write, what it means to be a writer, or how to think like a writer. So it is purely a motor activity. And hand over hand, I'm going to go back here. And hand over hand copying or tracing or writing is not writing either. When you do hand over hand activities with the student, their brain turns off because they know you're going to do it for them. So there is no motor pathway firing. So if a student does a scribble on the paper independently and you attribute meaning to that, there has been the beginning of that motor pathway formed. So you think about starting like with dental floss and building up to rope. The only way you're going to get better at these skills is by trying it yourself. You're not going to get better by someone doing it for you. And that's what hand over hand is. It's, invasive into their personal space. And, you know, a lot of our kids with complex needs, if you don't ask permission to help them with it, it teaches them that it is okay for adults to put their hands on my body and do things without asking me. And that is a skill that we do not want our children having. So, you know, we're not alone in working on function, because in special ed, we've kind of bypassed emergent writing because we haven't understood how important it is. Or we've thought because the students in kindergarten or first grade, we need to be making their writing look like everyone else's. And we've had students who didn't believe they were writers and never had the opportunity to scribble. So we didn't teach them the function of print, we just taught them to copy. And we've never taught them that print was a code for speech, and that the basic functions of print allow individuals to develop as writers. So this is from Jane Farrell, who is just, you know, an awesome SLP, I believe. So developmental stages of writing. So I talked a little bit about my daughter and kind of what we saw. And so you can kind of see through this the developmental stages of scribbling. There's like pre-literate, emergent, where you start to see some letters and familiar words, and then transitional, where you might get the first letter of each word, or pieces of words. My cat is brown, you can see down here. And then you get more fluent writing. So that is the progression that all typically developing kids go through. Our students with complex needs or motor delays, they need to be able to go through these stages as well. So writing development happens because of literacy experience, because they get to see that words in books have meaning. People are pointing out the text as they're reading, pointing out the text on signs. I know driving down the road, sometimes we'd go and try to find every letter B that we saw on a sign when the kids were little. Attributing meaning to writing or scribbling. So I had a young man, kindergartner, who just struggled with letter formation. And he sat down one day and he wrote a page of just random letters. I mean, a full page. And so when he was done, I said, wow, you did a lot of writing. I want you to sit in my author's chair and I want you to tell me what you wrote. And he had this amazing story about pirates and, you know, searching for treasure. And, you know, and when we were done, I was like, you know what, that was a great story. We are going to hang it on my wall. And, you know, when we were done, that child, you know, he understood the function of writing and he saw himself as a writer. And little by little, with more of those emergent opportunities, you started to see his letter formation improve as well. Our students with disabilities need more emergent writing opportunities. It takes 3.5 years for typical developing children to develop from emergent to early conventional writers. So our students with disabilities, it's going to take longer. And it's going to look for many of them different than what you're expecting. So what we need to do, so some conditions of literacy are you want to have high expectations, that approximations and errors are accepted and celebrated. And Karen Erickson talks about that you never, ever, ever correct it on the student's paper. You might write it on a sticky note and stick it on the back. So if you're helping them, share it in the author's chair. But when they write, it's like you're excited that they have made that approximation of writing. Every attempt has meaning attributed to it. And then there's lots of modeling. You're modeling writing all the time. You're modeling making a shopping list. You're modeling texting a friend, you know, writing a story, writing a sentence. So lots and lots of modeling. And children with disabilities, and the research, you know, definitely in the Comprehensive Literacy for All is now really showing that, you know, children with significant disabilities benefit from the same literacy experiences and instructional approach used with typically developing children. So I want you to look at this picture for a little bit. And I walked into my boss's office a few years ago, and this was hanging on her wall. And we had been talking about, you know, alternative pencils and ways to, use it and how important it was, and writing goals around it. And this is, her daughter had done this. So there's a picture on the bottom, and the story is about the picture. So she knew how to spell her name. She knew how to spell her brother's name. And then look what you see. You see random letters. You see repeated letters out of order. You see emojis. I mean, and emojis, in this generation, that is a way of writing. So, do you think her mom was like, oh, no, that's not writing, I can't read any of it? No, she was like, at least that is great. What a great story. I love your picture. I'm going to put it on my wall at work. And so this child, understands the function of writing. So here, this is some samples from an OT friend of mine and some of her students who were super excited about writing. So this one over here was with using clicker docs on the iPad. And so first they typed the alphabet, and then they were typing their name, and you can see they got pretty close to Gabriel. You got some of the beginning sound. You got, they knew that car was like a 3-letter word. So you're starting to kind of see some definite, they're starting to kind of put that together. The next one was, merely scribbling on the board and then being able to tell the story. Definitely, it looks like you've got some things looking like H's and Y's and T's and maybe some E's and some numbers. So some things are coming together for that student. And then this is another student who, typed this wonderful string of letters. And then the OT said, what does your sentence say? And she's like, they're sailing on the beach. And so here we broke the kind of rule of writing on there. But this is before we knew better. And then catch the fish. And you can see we've got some of the things there is, coming in as well. You've got an F and a C. And so that's what function looks like in writing. All right, errorless writing. And so these are where you kind of give them the pictures to paste on the thing, where they can't make a mistake. Sometimes there's a place for that. But if that's all you do for your writing instruction, it prevents curiosity, and to learn something, we have to be curious about it. If they know, oh, if I just pick the picture and put it here, or copy that word, then it's not giving them that curiosity to learn more about something. And then as a result, prevents their learning. And it doesn't teach the learning target. It just produces a product that looks like everybody else's. So you want to think about what that learning target is and make sure that your interventions are heading towards that learning target. And it may not look pretty like everybody else's. And it doesn't give them an opportunity to figure out how to do something that they don't know how to do, because you've already done it for them. You've made it successful for them. And it gets in the way of long-term progress. So this should not be the only thing you are doing in writing. All right. So what is the alternative pencil? It was developed by Gretchen Hanser, who is an OT at the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. And it is defined as anything that provides a student with access to all 26 letters of the alphabet. The link is here, and Andrea, if you can put that in the chat, and I will email you guys out a copy of the handout. Right now, you can download the alternative pencil templates there for free, and they have a variety of ones that we'll go through here in a minute. And there's just a wealth of resources on their alternative pencil page. All right, who are they for? So they were created for students who are unable to hold a traditional pencil or physically manipulate a standard keyboard. They can be used with writers of varying abilities, including those who are emergent writers and those who are writing a little bit more conventionally. And when you look at the website, they really talk about if they can hold a pencil or a keyboard, let them write that way. I know I've had some students in the past who are on the autism spectrum who can hold a pencil and who can form letters, but it has become such an aversion to them because they've been forced to kind of write those letters and, you know, produce and perform, that sometimes this takes some of the stress away and you can begin to get them to see themselves as writers. So that's a group that I use it with as well. But so an alternative pencil, there's a couple things you need to do for our students with complex needs. The first one is you want to teach them a yes, no response. If you can only have one, go for yes, because no response in our culture is considered no, or you could, you know, but pick one, and you want to try to get it to be as close to a conventional yes, no as possible. So it could be eyes up, eyes to the side. And we'll talk about that some more, how to teach that. You want to find a topic of interest to the students. And so there's a variety of ways for that. So you could have the family send in some pictures, or, you know, you could go with them on the internet and pick pictures of things that they might want to write about. And you could pop those into like a Google slide deck or a PowerPoint. So then you have pictures for them to go and look at, pictures of people from home. Because I know when my kids were growing up, Sunday night, there were a lot of tears in our house around, oh my gosh, it's Monday and I'm going to have to come in and write about my weekend and we didn't do anything fun. So, you know, I write about things I like to write about. Things I don't like to write about, I have to kind of make myself write, and it's not as much fun. And so we want to, these emergent writers, we want them to be interested in whatever they're going to write about. You want to give them all the letters of the alphabet, not just a few. For emergent writers, and you'll get to see how this happens, the partner goes through each letter. So it's like partner assisted scanning. So you can say, do you want A? Do you want B? The student chooses the letter they want, whether they know it or not. And the partner writes it down for them so the student can see the letters. So you are the pencil, it's the alphabet strip that is the alternative pencil. And for emergent writers, you know, I tell the student the name of the letter, the sound of the letter. We'll read them back once they're finished. And anywhere there is an alphabet, you have an alternative pencil. So almost every AAC app or device has an alphabet somewhere. So get familiar with where that alphabet is. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about teaching yes, no head movements, because this was an aha moment for me. I used to do head trauma rehab, and when someone came out of a coma, the first thing we taught them is what their yes, no was going to be. I didn't wait for them to show me, I taught them. And when I got to the schools, it was like, oh no, we're waiting for them to show us what their yes, no is. And it's like, no, we got to teach them their yes, no. So you want to teach them what their yes and no is going to be. Don't wait for them to kind of magically show you what it is. So you want to try, if at all possible, not to use a smile for yes, because if someone asks you if you need to vomit, you don't want to have to smile for yes. And you model it with like crazy extreme head movements. So lots of, you know, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. You can use voice out. So how you would do it with these little switches, we'll see if I get the one in the right. Okay, so you might have a little activity where you're doing yes and no, and if they move their head ever so slightly this way, you're gonna, and then you might go up here, and if their eyes go up or their head go up, they might say yes. So they don't really have to touch the switch. So what you want is just that auditory reinforcement that you've hit the switch for yes and no. You can do fun yes, no songs with the whole class as part of morning meeting. You can do highly motivating choices with a less desirable choice and see if that works. And then you want to make sure that you're doing that verbal referencing, that you're saying, I saw you move your head to the side. I'm going to take that as a no. So then they know what they've done that's made you think that what they have said is no. And don't ask them, you don't want to test. It's like, are you sure you meant no? It's like, if that head goes to the side, you're like, I'm taking it as a no. And one of the questions I get asked is like, some kids, this is kind of a stimmy movement, but you can shape that if they'll, often like if you're talking and they're engaged with you, they'll kind of stop. And then you can start working on that yes and no, because then it's different than this. It's just a different motor skill that you're using. So here is a little video of 50 songs. I have 50 minutes of songs. I can be honest, I haven't listened to all 50 minutes, but I'm going to play the first one because it's just a fun kind of age respectful yes no song. So you kind of get the hang of it. So there are several songs in that series. Not all of them are yes and no, but there are several. So you could have different days where you're modeling that yes and no with some different songs. So with the alternative pencil, every student can become a writer. There's no exclusion criteria for students to use the alternative pencil. No one is too delayed, too poorly behaved, or too impaired. They can learn to write regardless of perceived ability or skill set. They don't need to be a proficient speller or have consistent letter sound correspondence skills to begin to explore the act of writing. And so I think that's what we've got to remember. We are exploring the act of writing. We are not, coming up with perfect writing. We are exploring writing. And just keep remembering that slide with the pictures of the developmental stages of writing, because I think so often, again, like I said, we get into school and we want it to look like everybody else's, and we forget that there's a developmental stage. And just like any other motor, and cognitive development, you kind of have to work your way through it to get to the next stage. So all means all. This is Erin Sheldon, who is a mom of a complex learner, was also recently on, actually, she was the one interviewing Karen Erickson on the Tech to Talk podcast. And she says, if we don't assume that every child in this inclusive classroom is potentially literate, and that it is our job to teach them literacy, then what we actually communicate to all of the kids in the class is that this is a friend who visits and all the rest of us are doing the work of learning. So no more visitors in class. We want everybody doing the work of learning. So another quote here is, I have a right to write even if I can't hold a pencil. Now, giving the student knowledge of the alphabet gives them power, like so much power, because if my arm is hurting and you're trying to ask me what's wrong and I give you some A's, you're going to be able to figure out that it's my arm. So it gives them, it's a lot easier to kind of get authentically what they're trying to communicate apart if you can get a few of the letters. So what does an alternative pencil look like? It is so high tech, let me tell you. It is an alphabet flip chart, or it could be an alphabet that you have a little blackout scanner that you're scanning through. It uses partner assisted scanning. So do you want an A and wait? Do you want a B? And remember that wait time for some of our kids is 10 seconds or longer, and that is a long time. But just wait them out, it'll get faster. So the student selects either by a movement or a vocalization. It could be yah. One of my gals was yah and nah. You'll get to meet here in a little bit. And then the partner records the student's writing, and the partner helps interpret their writing. So let's see. So this is my friend Terry, and before the video starts, I'm going to tell you the student had already done this. And the parent's like, oh my gosh, we have to get a video of that. So some of the places where she's getting a little extra cueing were where she had done it before. And she kind of gives Terry like a good kind of look and a nod up, which it's hard to see in the video for her yes. So here we go.
Right about. We have baseball fun, the park, sports, or school. I like the way you're looking at all of them. Which one do you think you'd like to write about? Show me. Park, sports, school, or baseball?
And she had picked sports the first time, so
All
that's
right.
what happened.
Keep this one here because sports is a baseball is about sports too. All right. If you look at these words and these pictures, would you like an A, a B? A B? Okay. B is in baseball. Look. B is in baseball. All right, would you like to choose another word? Would you like an A, a B, a C, a D? Next page. Would you like would you like this one? Player? All right. Let's get that word on there. Player's got a P, an L, an A. There's our A, Y, E, R. We'll draw a little guy there. Here's our player, and here's our, we've got baseball and player. Should we look for another word? All right. Would you like an A? No. A B? No. A C? A D? An E? E? Okay. We'll get an E. I see that there's an E in our baseball and an E in player. Would you like an F? A G? An H? More what? An I? Okay. Let's just see. Right about. Right about.
Okay, so any questions there? You can unmute and ask, or we can just keep going here. This is one that you could build up here out of PVC pipe. You could also make it on just a big piece of black poster board with a cutout in the middle so you can see their eyes. It's an eye gaze frame. And so you're on the opposite side, and the mirror image, the picture is on the opposite side as well to help you. There's a front side and a back side for this template. And you're like, okay, we're going to write a word. And you've already done some teaching that, okay, you know, there's a pink, there's a pink outline here. There's a yellow outline here, green, blue, and you can say you could do it a couple ways. What color is the letter you want? And if they look up here, okay, it's a yellow letter. And you can, okay, show me what yellow letter you want. And that they might look over here and it's a V, and you're like, okay, I'm going to write a V down. Does that make sense? I was also, I'm reading this book, which is really an awesome book written by a woman with a disability who uses an AAC device. And she has an alphabet that she has come up with that she has taught all of her caregivers. And it's her alternative pencil on her alternative way to communicate. So each of the letters has some eye movements. And so looking to the right is position 1, upper right is position 2, middle is position 3, 4, and 5. So if she looks to the right twice, then that's an A that she's trying to say. And so you can kind of see here kind of what she's got as her letters. And she talks about how at first everybody kind of has to use the cheat sheet, but then they get pretty quick at being able to communicate, because she doesn't like to have her AAC device on her all the time. And especially when she's in bed and having breakfast, she wants to just, you know, be away from the screen a little bit. So I thought that was a pretty clever tool, and just, you know, gets us thinking about, you know, a different way to give them the ability to use the alphabet. My computer is being grumbly today. Okay, so they also have Braille and sign language alphabets. And if you have a Brailler in your school, they could, you know, punch the ones up in Braille so they could actually feel the letters. And again, you know, depending on the student, you know, partner assisted scanning or direct select. And then, you know, and a lot of times if they pick a B, it's like, oh, like Terry said, you said B, the B's in baseball. Let me show you what baseball looks like. And, you know, B says ba, 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 you know, and so you're teaching that alphabet and phonetic awareness as well. So you don't have to have the fancy, well, it's not fancy, but you don't have to have the low-tech version from the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. Any alphabet can be an alternative pencil. So it could be on an AAC device. It could be, if you are a district that uses POD to communicate, there's an alphabet page in the POD book. A print copy of the alphabet. I know Carolyn Musselwhite uses a kind of 5x5 with, you know, X and Y and Z together. And she uses a little black occluder and says, is it in this row, this row, this row, this row? And with the alternative pencil from the Center for Disability and Literacy Studies, initially you would go through each letter, and then as they know what's on that page, you can speed it up quite a bit and go like, oh, is it on this page? Nope. Is it on this page? Yep. Let's go through all of those. You know, in a pinch could be an alphabet strip on the desk if you're in class with someone. And so you've got that there. Quickly writing the alphabet out can be an alternative pencil. So just because you may not have the pencil that you're, you know, the alternative pencil that you're using, you can make one really quickly. I know one of the teachers in one of the presentations I've attended, she said that, you know, everybody had their you know, pencil box. And so, you know, my students who used alternative pencils, that was what was in their pencil box. So, you know, that everybody could get their pencil out. So this is a video, and we're going to watch a bit of it, and we'll watch the beginning. It's one of my middle schoolers. And so she's one that her para had started using the alternative pencil with, and we figured out that she had some phonemic awareness and was doing some spelling. And so they're doing this video for me specifically. So you'll hear her say,
"Is the first letter for sister on this page yes or no?" No. Very good. Okay. So the answer is no. So we're going to turn the page. Try to do this with one hand. Okay. Danae, is the first letter of the word sister on this page? We're looking for the letter that says, is that on this page?
Oh, really?
Yes or no?
I want you to trace these dots.
No. Okay. So you said no.
So I'm going to stop that just to focus on time. She eventually did get there. And when they got to the page that had S on it, she stopped answering for each individual thing and she was staring down the letter S. And her para knew her well enough to know, oh, you're eye pointing at S. And so you can use it with a variety, depending on how well you know the student, but it's not quick, but it allows them to have some authentic writing. And I love this quote from, again, Erin Sheldon and Karen Erickson, that presuming competence doesn't mean that we pretend there's no disability. It means that we'll still teach you regardless of the disability. And that's what the alternative pencil allows you to do, to start teaching writing. At the end of this, I've just included some examples of how you might document the alternative pencil and IEP goals. And so in your present level of performance, you can explain what it is, because you're really going to have to explain what this is, because people think it's like an adaptive pencil. And so you want to really explain what it is. You can put, the information from Hansard's research in there, so that, families and teams know that it's evidence-based. Describing the stages that they describe. So there's like repeated letters in order, repeated letters out of order, letter patterns, random with spaces, and word-like groupings. So this is, you can explain. And then you can say that this is where they're at. They're at this stage. And then we want to be able to move them to this stage. So, just some samples for you there. And let's see, we'll go to questions in just a second. This is Karen Owens. She is raising 3 children with complex bodies, and she has a really cool video on YouTube. And I'll send you, when I send you the PowerPoint, I've put together a reference for like teaching yes and no. And she's got a cute video of her. She's got Beyonce and, I forget who the other one was. Anyway, they're doing like Miss Yes and Mr. No. But, she really talks about, don't mix up performance with intelligence, just because, and as therapists and teachers, we all know that, that, some of our most brilliant kids have yet to be set free, simply because the adults in their world haven't learned how to serve them best and pull out their potential. So let's not get stuck in that performance trap. And every child needs you to believe in them, which I know you do, and they need that and deserve that champion. So I am going to, and then there's a list of resources that I will send you as well. So I'm going to stop my share, and